Hi folks, the last thing we're going to look at in our grade 9 chemistry review is two types of compounds that can be formed that we'll be continuing to study this year in grade 10. So the first one we'll look at are what are called ionic compounds. Okay, and these are formed with ionic bonds. The way an ionic bond works is an electron is actually lost or gained, or it could be more than one electron that is lost or gained by particular atoms. So if we take again the example of sodium, which we worked with in the last video, it has one electron in its outer shell, so it easily loses that electron. Okay, and if we take as an example, say chlorine, we see chlorine here has 7 electrons in its outer shell out of a maximum of 8. Okay, and what atoms like to do is they like to have full outer shells. So sodium losing the one in the third shell would then be left with a complete second shell. Okay, and here chlorine, which has 7, in fact I'll show it here. Okay, chlorine has 7 electrons in its outer shell, would like to have 8. Okay, but if it gains an electron, that means it has one more electron than it does proton, so it'll form a negatively charged ion. And if sodium loses an electron, it'll have one less electron than proton, so it'll be a positively charged ion. Okay, and the way in which we can represent this using Bohr-Rutherford diagrams is here we see our sodium ion, which has one less electron, so it has a charge of +1, and our chlorine ion, which has that extra electron now, so a charge of -1. Okay, and these two, having opposite charges, attract each other, okay, to form sodium chloride. Now we'll spend more time later on talking about how we're going to name these molecules, so don't worry about that now. Okay, now ionic compounds are usually formed with a metal and a non-metal. Okay, and they don't exist as individual molecules like this. They'll usually exist in this lattice structure, where in this case here you would have the same number of sodium ions as you would chlorine ions. Okay, so ionic compounds are formed by an atom losing an electron or electrons and another one gaining those electrons. Okay, the other type that you would have studied, that we'll continue studying this year, are what are called molecular compounds or covalent compounds. Okay, and they're formed with covalent bonds. So covalent because here the atoms are going to share the valence electrons. So here you've got an atom with 8 protons and 8 electrons. So if you look on your periodic table, you see that that would be oxygen, and then here you've got atoms with 1 proton, 1 electron, so those are both hydrogen. Okay, and here these covalent compounds are usually formed with different nonmetals. Okay, and we see here that the we see that the oxygen here is sharing outer electrons with one of the hydrogen and then with the other hydrogen. You see that they're creating these complete outer shells. So 2 possible electrons in the outer shells of the hydrogen, because it only has the first electron shell, and then a complete outer shell for the oxygen. Okay, and this of course is just H2O or water. Okay, these do tend to exist as individual molecules and are usually in a gaseous or liquid state as at the standard temperature and pressure as water is. Okay, so keep in mind, ionic compounds, there's a transfer of electrons from one to the other. Covalent or molecular compounds, there's a sharing of electrons in the outer shells. Okay, that's it for now.